Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're unpacking a truly fascinating piece of modern storytelling. We are going to look at David Fincher and Aaron Sorkin's 2010 film, The Social Network. We're going to explore that incredible, often messy friction between documented history and Hollywood drama. I mean, think about it. How exactly do you take the origin story of one of the world's most powerful, ubiquitous platforms and translate that for the big screen? Well, we're about to find out. Okay, let's dive into this with a quote directly from the film's screenwriter, Aaron Sorkin. He openly stated, and I quote, "I don't want my fidelity to be to the truth. I want it to be to storytelling." That quote right there, it perfectly sets the stage for our entire deep dive today. We are looking directly at the tension between a highly polished cinematic adaptation and the heavily documented real-world reality of how Facebook was actually created. Section 1. A modern masterpiece. The cultural impact of the social network. Let's get right into it. Before we get into what is strictly true and what was, spun up for the cameras, we really have to acknowledge the massive footprint this film left on pop culture when it hit theaters. Just look at this number, 110. An absolutely astounding 110 film critics named The Social Network the best film of 2010. It dominated top 10 lists, appearing on over 70 of them. That was way more than any other film released that year. It established the kind of critical consensus that is honestly incredibly rare to see in modern cinema. Director David Fincher and writer Aaron Sorkin completely transformed what was essentially the mundane origin story of a website into an undeniable commercial and critical juggernaut. To put that into perspective, they took a modest $40 million budget and raked in nearly $225 million at the global box office. And on top of that, it earned 8 Oscar nominations, taking home 3 Academy Awards, including Best Adapted Screenplay. So by every single metric, whether we're talking financial, critical, or cultural, it was a massive success that completely transcended its subject matter. Moving on to Section 2, the book versus the film. Let's look at those page-to-screen differences. So Sorkin based his screenplay on an unpublished draft of a book called The Accidental Billionaires by Ben Mezrich. Now, Mezrich's original book was heavily anchored in co-founder Eduardo Saverin's viewpoint. In fact, Mezrich specifically thanks Saverin in his author's notes, saying the story literally couldn't have been written without him. Because of that, the book often treats Mark Zuckerberg almost like a sidekick to Saverin's college experience. But Sorkin, he made a brilliant overarching choice for the film. He refocused the narrative squarely back on Mark. Sorkin realized Zuckerberg was the true focal point of the whole shebang. He presented him not just as this genius coder, but as a deeply complex, even tragic figure, perpetually haunted by a need for social acceptance. Sorkin also recognized that he needed stronger emotional anchors for his script. In Mezrich's book, the character Erica Albright, the girl who famously dumps Mark in the opening scene and fuels his initial drive, well, she simply doesn't exist. There is a vague mention of an unnamed girl, but no Erica. Similarly, the junior lawyer Marilyn Delpy, who acts as Mark's sounding board later in the film, is entirely absent from the text. Sorkin purposefully introduced these characters into the film to act as crucial emotional mirrors for Mark. It grounded the drama and gave us, the audience, a way to process his actions in a way the original text didn't quite manage. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that some of the most memorable, truly iconic moments from the movie aren't in the source book at all. Sorkin brilliantly engineered them from scratch to build cinematic tension. The entire framing device of the deposition room, not in the book. That famous aha moment where Mark figures out the relationship status feature during a conversation, Sorkin created that completely for dramatic effect to give the audience a visual spark of invention. And that beautiful, intense meltdown where Eduardo smashes Mark's laptop, well, in Mezrich's account, Eduardo simply walked away, shouting no on his way out. Sorkin just amplified the reality to serve the pacing attention of the story. All right, Section 3, Fact versus Fiction. Let's talk about the real-life pushback. As you can imagine, when you dramatically alter history for Hollywood, the people who actually lived it are going to have something to say. We'll start with the man himself. When asked about the film at a tech conference, Mark Zuckerberg said, "I just wish that nobody made a movie of me while I was still alive." Zuckerberg pointed out that the movie's emphasis on drama and partying was largely fiction. He said he spent those years highly focused, just coding and building things at his desk. However, he did offer a bit of surprising praise. He admitted they nailed his wardrobe perfectly, noting that every single shirt and fleece Jesse Eisenberg wore in the movie was an exact match to one he actually owned in real life. Facebook co-founder Dustin Moskovitz offered another perspective. He called the film a dramatization of history, stating it emphasizes things that didn't matter and leaves out things that really did. Moskovitz pointed out that the film focused heavily on characters like the Winklevoss twins, who Moskovitz said he had never even met, while completely leaving out the many, many people who actually supported the team during those highly stressful, exhausting early days of building the site. And then there's Sean Parker, the Napster co-founder, played by Justin Timberlake in the film. Parker was quite stark in his dismissal of the movie. He called his portrayal as a morally reprehensible human being a complete work of fiction. He also firmly pushed back against the narrative that there was a massive falling out between him and Eduardo Saverin. He claimed the two actually remained friends in real life, which is completely contrary to the dramatic climax we see on screen. So how did Sorkin navigate these completely conflicting realities while writing the film? Well, he essentially took a Rashomon approach. When he was researching, Sorkin found that during the actual lawsuits, the plaintiffs, the defendants, and the witnesses all swore under oath in a deposition room, and they proceeded to tell three entirely different versions of the story. Rather than picking one and declaring it the absolute objective truth, Sorkin embraced the contradiction. He structured the script around those three conflicting stories told in that one room. He made the subjectivity of truth the actual engine driving the film forward. It's like a giant puzzle, and it works flawlessly. Which brings us to Section 4, a prophetic legacy, forecasting the tech landscape. What makes The Social Network so absolutely fascinating to look back on today is seeing how its themes have ripened in our modern era. The cultural ripples this film created were enormous, and this is a really crucial takeaway for us. Analysts noted that the movie actually inspired a whole new generation of tech entrepreneurs. It fundamentally shifted the culture so that in many ways, techies became the new rock stars. It's also been widely recognized as a pinnacle of screenwriting. The Writers Guild of America ranked Sorkin's script the third greatest of the 21st century. And, cementing its historical significance entirely, the Library of Congress added it to the U.S. National Film Registry in 2024 for being culturally and historically significant. That is a massive deal. Tracking this legacy forward, we can see how the narrative just continues to evolve. Back in 2010, the film releases and immediately captures the zeitgeist. Fast forward to the end of the decade, in 2019, and major publications are naming it the absolute defining film of the 2010s. They pointed out how its unease about social media moving fast and breaking things felt terrifyingly prophetic. And that brings us to the future. There's a highly anticipated sequel titled The Social Reckoning. It's reuniting Aaron Sorkin as writer and director, and it's scheduled for release in October 2026. It aims to tackle the profoundly complicated years that followed the original film. Which brings us to the core tension of our deep dive today. We've seen how Sorkin favored storytelling over strict fidelity to real-life events, and we've seen how the real people involved push back against that framing. But we've also seen the undeniable, massive cultural resonance the film achieved. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. When it comes to recording our modern history on film, which matters more? The literal, objective facts of what happened in that dorm room, or capturing the larger, perhaps darker, emotional truth of the era we were all about to enter? Think about that next time you log on. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.